What's up, Pickleheads? Back another week. Today we want to talk about stacking, why you should stack, and actually why you shouldn't stack. It's a pet peeve of mine. I think it can be really important to your game, who should be stacking, why they should be stacking, where we'll even talk about the half stack. So stick around. We're going to go into detail about it, and we hope this will improve your game. Oz, what's up?
What's up? You still got bronchitis?
I still got something, but I feel good. I just don't sound great.
You've been sick for a while now.
Yeah, I had a cold flu, just a lot of congestion, but feeling pretty good now. Hopefully it's not annoying to people to listen to because we got some important stuff to talk about today. So, Oz, let's talk about briefly, I don't want everyone to tune out here, but briefly what stacking is. I would assume the majority of our listeners and those watching know what stacking is, but just in case, Oz, can you give us just a brief description of what it is, and then we'll talk about why and who should be stacking.
Yeah, so essentially what stacking is it is where you and your partner are obviously playing together against opponents. And let's say, for instance, you're on the left side of the court. Your partner's on the right side of the court. Maybe your partner is a more refined tool on the left side of the court where you are. So because you know that, you're going to go to the right side of the court, but your partner is still going to have to serve and return from the right side of the court. So you guys will switch after that initial serve or return so that you're standing in the optimal position. So it's totally legal, but you need to make sure that you're either serving or returning on the side that you're supposed to be on that correlates to your score. And what me and Spencer are going to talk about today is basically, should you be stacking based off of your level, based off of your partner, based off of whatever is going on, and then also how stacking can benefit you in your game. So starting with the first thing, Spencer, what would you say? When should people be stacking? When should they not be stacking? Why is there even stacking in pickleball?
Okay. Let's talk about then first why they should not be stacking, because this one tends to irk me. You show up to the court and you see, maybe it's a couple playing together and they've been playing for, I don't know, a few months, and somebody told them about stacking and they thought, hey, that's a good idea. Let's start stacking. When in reality, it is not meant for everybody. One reason for that is it can be extremely difficult if you're not super mobile or super athletic to get back into your position when you're stacking. So, for example, let's say we have two people that are rated 3.0, okay? So they're fairly new to pickleball. The guy wants to play on the left because he's right-handed. He wants to have his forehand in the middle, maybe cover a little bit more court. And let's say his wife or his partner, whoever he's playing with, is left-handed. And so she kind of wants to have her forehand in the middle, so it would make sense for them to stack. Like you said, Oz, the only rules with stacking is you must return and you must serve when it's your turn to return and when it's your turn to serve. But then you can move, to that other side if that's where you want to be. But this is where it kind of irks me a little bit. Somebody just was told to stack, not knowing and thinking, hey, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe this will put my forehand in the middle. But all it's really doing is causing a delay in their game because they're not able to get in their position after they return, or they're not able to get into their position after they serve because they're on the opposite side. And the other team is taking advantage of that by just putting the ball away on them and hitting it to that open space because they're not able to thoroughly cover the court. So again, I would say don't stack if you are lower level. I would say improve, and that's okay if you're lower level, but I would say improve your skill set first understand exactly why you would be stacking, and if it makes sense, if you are mobile enough, if you are athletic enough to be able to get into position to be able to stack.
Yeah, I would agree with you on most of that. I would say more so than the level, it comes down to the reason behind you stacking. So if you're just stacking, like Spencer was saying, just to stack because some advanced player told you to stack, then you shouldn't be stacking.
Yeah.
And I'd say that regardless of level, even if you're a 5.0 and you were told to stack, but you don't understand why to stack. What I would say it comes down to is if it benefits you and you understand the benefits of doing so. So for instance, I'm a left side player for the most part. I have absolutely loved playing on the right side lately, but I would say my game is just much better on that left side. Reason for that is because I am a righty player. I'm very forehand dominant. And so anything that comes up the middle, I can take. And not a lot of players are forehand dominant. A lot of players are backhand dominant, actually. Like Ben Johns, number 1 in the world, is backhand dominant. Someone like Tyson McGuffin, I'd say he's more forehand dominant than backhand dominant. But as soon as he comes up to the non-volley zone line, majority of his shots are going to be backhand. And that's the same with every player that plays. But what I mean by more dominant is I use it a lot more than other players do. And so because of that, it makes more sense for me to put that forehand in the middle and stop anything from coming up the middle. Whereas someone that has a more dominant backhand, it's going to make more sense for them to either be on the right side, or if they're left-handed and their forehand's in the middle. You kind of want to have that forehand in the middle when possible. Something that wouldn't make sense is to put a lefty on the left side and a righty on the right side, because then you only have your forehands down the line. And so they can really punish the middle, hitting drops and dinks there and speed ups there, because that's going to be everybody's weaker side. It's going to be on their backhand side. So it comes down to understanding what are your strengths. Do you have a good backhand dink? Is your backhand dink better than your opponent and you're a righty player? Then it's going to make more sense. Than your partner. Then it's going to make more sense for you to play on the left side. So just breaking that down more, Spencer, what would you say? So that's for the left side. You have a better backhand dink as a righty player or forehand dink as a lefty player. What would you say it is for the right side?
Real quick, I have a perfect example of this, of maybe why you wouldn't stack. So I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to say when my wife first started playing pickleball, we went and, we played with certain groups of people, right? One of them was left-handed. She got matched up with him, and he said, we want to have my forehand in the middle, so we should stack. But again, she's pretty new to pickleball. So his idea was, let's stack so that I can be on the right side of the court and have my forehand in the middle. And an issue that they found right away is, one, she was super confused about where she needed to be. Okay, so obviously it was something she needed to learn. And then, it was hard for them to keep track of score. It was hard for them to keep track of where they needed to be.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand the concept, understand why stack. And so she can't even get to her position in time before she's being beat by the ball. Whereas in that situation, it probably would have been better for them, not to stack at all.
Right.
Over time, she's learned and she's starting to get in position. And I hate to pick on her, but now let's fast forward to now. The optimal position, if I'm playing with my wife, we're at different levels. The optimal thing that we do now is half stack. Okay, so I'm sorry to get away from your question there. We will come back to it here. But there's definitely benefits to half stacking. And let me explain why we don't full stack. Because it's an issue every time and it has not gotten better.
Yeah.
So I play on the left side of the court when we stack. And we're going to call this half stacking. She plays on the right side of the court when we stack. Whether you're listening or watching the video this time, I don't think it's going to be either I don't think it's going to be more helpful either way. Usually we can say, hey, watch the video on YouTube, because then we can show you physically. But this one's really hard to show you, so I hope it makes sense as I explain. So I'm playing the left side, and that's where we start out. The other team serves. Obviously, they're serving to my wife, who is on the right side. She returns and comes straight forward. We're stacking, and we call this true. We're both in the positions that we want to be in, right? And then let's say they win the point, okay? And now they're serving to me. Same situation. I guess the camera does help a little bit. My wife is up. She's still on the right side of the court. I'm on the left side of the court, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we get a side out. We get the ball over on our side. We get a point. Uh-oh, now it's my wife's turn to serve on the left side of the court. Okay, now this puts us in a situation where I can start on the right side of the court and then let her know with hand signals I'm going to work my way left, and she's got to come all the way up to the right. Right? But if we're serving, I'm still going to be standing on her left, and it's not too.
I'm doing this without looking at you, like for this one, and I'm so lost.
Okay, let's break it down even less than this. Okay, it's taken me a long time to get all the way around the merry-go-round here, but okay, so now we're receiving. Okay. And the other team it's my turn to return on the right side of the court. So my wife would be standing towards the net and possibly out of bounds for them to serve to me. Once I return, I go to the left side of the court and she slides in on her right. Now we're still in a decent position. Where it gets really awkward is now it's my wife's turn to return from the left side of the court. If she returns from the left side of the court, she has to cross all the way forward and to the right side of the court, and that's where we get beat over and over. Not being able to get there in time. Try to hit a deep return, but still not being able to get there in time. So it makes more sense for us to half stack in this situation. And what that means is if she's returning from the left side of the court, which is not her side, she still goes straight up and just plays the left side, at least for that point, or however many points it ends up being before we're back to the other side. I should have just fast forwarded to that from the beginning. Hopefully that portion of it made sense. But it makes sense for us to half stack. Tried to full stack over and over. Didn't make sense. You got to do what works and makes sense for you and your partner.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes down to levels too. So it's not just necessarily, hey, someone told me to stack, so I'm doing it. But it does come down to the level, because if they can't get their return deep enough, it's not going to make any sense for your wife to go all the way over to the right side of the court and play out the point, because she's not going to be able to effectively get that return deep if she's hitting a return off someone that's serving bombs or someone that's serving like really, really good serves, just because of her level and just because of everybody's level. So it's going to come down to level for that based off of how deep that return can go, because that can put you in a really good situation. The main problem with that is if she ends up staying on that left side, now she has to get into a dink battle cross court with the other male, because in this instance we're playing mixed. Yeah. So who's going to win that dink battle? Is it going to be her or is it going to be that other male? And that's what that comes down to, because then it's like, okay, we're going to have to risk this. If that other male is better at dinking than Whitney is, then it's going to make more sense to just unwind the stack and take your chances, and hopefully she can get that return deep. Because that way, now it's Spencer going against that male in the dink battle. So I think you have to weigh that as well, where it's just like, okay, maybe they hit a couple of winners on us, but at least it's not they're winning every single point because they're just out dinking us. Now, if Whitney is a better dinker than him, then there's no point in even stacking in the first place because she can get a return in and then she can just out dink. Now Spencer's in front of the other male, and it comes down to who has faster hands between them after the whole dink exchange is done and over with. But yeah, it definitely comes down to a level thing. It can be tricky. I just barely played a tournament this last weekend, and right before we started, I played with my friend Dalton, really, really good player. So much fun to play with. We had a hoot of a time. And right before we started, we were warming up, waiting for our court to get on. And we were supposed to get on at 2:30. And right at 2:30, he went for, I want to say it was an ATP. I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but I watched it happen. And he went and ran into the net post. There was this little like bead hanging off, little ball from the side of the net post, bombed his knee on the side of the net post. And
really,
it was one of those things where he hits it and then it's like, oh dude, that's so funny. Like, okay, take a second. But it's like after the second happened, he was like, oh man, I think I really hurt my knee. And then he couldn't put any pressure on it for a while.
Yikes.
And then they call us over for our court at 2:32, 2 minutes later. And he's like, dude, I think I really muffed my knee. I don't know if I can play. And I was like, well, let's give it one game and let's just see how it goes. And he's like just struggling to even put pressure. And so then I'm like, okay, we need a stack. I need to take over the whole court. And that ended up being super destructive for us because I was trying to take too much. And so it ended up being we lost that first game because I was missing everything because I was trying to take too much court so that he didn't have to do that much.
Yeah.
So then we headed into the second game, and I was like still in that mindset. We lost that one. And he's like, dude, I don't want to continue playing. I don't want to ruin your duper. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about my duper at all. I just want to play if it doesn't hurt you too bad. I just care about your knee. And he's like, I'm good. Like, we can keep going. But he literally couldn't. He was like hopping around after every point. It was the funniest thing. It was actually really, really fun.
That's horrible, though.
Yeah. But then we got into the third game, and I figured out, hey, let's stack. I don't need to take 75% of the court. But we did a half stack to where he didn't have to switch sides because he just wasn't mobile enough to switch sides. Yeah. The dude's literally hopping around the court. It was insane. But that day we went 1-7. We won one match out of the 7. The one match that we did win, they hit all the balls to me. And I really appreciated it. I'm not sure why they did.
Maybe they felt bad for you.
I don't think they knew. They obviously didn't know. The funniest thing was we played this team from Vegas, our third round. We were up 10-8. We were playing 2-11, just one game to 11. Super lame tournament. That's how they go sometimes.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, it's really tough. We were up 10-8, and Dalton went for a ball and like started hopping, and the other team was like, "Are you okay?" And Dalton was like, "No." And then he was like, "I mean, yeah." Like, to not let them know. Every ball went to him after. Every single ball. I was like, "Why did you say that?" And then we lost 11-10. It was also win by one, which is also super lame. You pay for a tournament and then you go play one game to 11. It's like,
yeah,
what?
That's bad. And I hate win by one. That's just tough.
It's tough, especially with someone with a gimpy leg,
in my opinion.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And then we got into single elimination and we lost first round. And the team that we lost to is always how it goes. That's the team that won the tournament. We were up on them the whole time, and then they really targeted Dalton at the end. Everybody knew at that point that he was hurting, but it was a real hoot. It was really fun. But Dalton right now, he had a check. It wasn't a fracture or anything. We don't really know exactly what happened. He just knows that there's a deep bruise in there, and the doctor said don't play for 2 weeks.
Weird.
And so we don't know exactly what it was, but good thing it wasn't a fracture.
But yeah, there's so many situations like that where you should maybe stack or maybe half stack or maybe, situations where you shouldn't stack at all. And I guess go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that I figured out is we were doing half stack, and that wasn't working either because still he's playing on that left side, and it was his left knee that he hurt. So anytime he's hitting a backhand dink, he can't put pressure on that side. So then I'm like, okay, bro, we just have to do a full stack. Just get over there as best you can. And what I figured out is I just hang out on that right side for as long as possible, and then I just fully outstretch if they end up hitting a drive to the left side and take that next ball because he just couldn't get up there in time. But something you can figure out is you just hang out there a little bit longer if you have to do a full stack and the person's not as mobile. Hang out there for a little bit longer so that they don't know if you are switching or if you're not. And then you can kind of sprint over there. But that's what we had to end up doing. Stacking is interesting. And if you understand the strategy behind it, then it's like, then you can implement it in certain situations to benefit you and your partner.
Yeah, I mean, it can be super beneficial. By no means are we saying don't stack, and by no means are we saying you should have stack only.
Yeah.
You need to figure out what is best for your situation. Same with dinking. We've talked about this so much. Like, a lot of times, people coming into pickleball, they dink just because other people are dinking, and they don't understand why we need to dink. I think it's the same thing with stacking. People will stack in the beginning just because other people are stacking, just because they just learned it and it sounded cool, or because, hey, I'm left-handed, so we should definitely stack. But I would say understand why, practice it, make sure you understand how to do it and why you're doing it, and then it can be very beneficial for you. So anyway, just a pet peeve of mine. It can be a helpful episode for everyone. One last point to that, Os. You have a lot of females now that are just as good as the males. I know that you have a training partner that actually did well this past weekend at PPA. Played against Anna Lee. I know she had some nerves in the first game, but it was really close that second game. I know that her level is really high, and that might be one of those situations where it would make sense. It's like, wait, why are we stacking? Why are we spreading ourselves out when we know that you can cover either side and I can cover either side? You know, maybe you don't want to. Maybe you have two males that are very similar. Like, I've won multiple tournaments. I've won a couple 4-5 tournaments, medaled in a 5-0 tournament with a partner. And these were all with the same partner, and we never stacked. We just switched the entire time because that made sense for us. We knew we could cover each side. I remember one tournament in particular, I was struggling from the left side. We won our first game, and we destroyed them the first game, and then the second game, for some reason, I was really struggling on the left side, and that's the only time I can think of that we decided to stack, and he played on the left side for that game, to try to get us out of it. But do what works best for you. Don't just stack just to stack, I guess is my thought for the day.
Yeah, I love it. I think it comes down to two things. It comes down to, do you have a better counter on the left side or the right side? And do you have a better dink on the left side or the right side? If it's, yes, I have a better counter on the right side and I have a better forehand dink, then it's going to make sense to play on the right side majority of the time. But that doesn't mean that you should just fully neglect the left side. It means that you need to practice your left side counters, your left side dinks, so that you can get better at that, be a more refined tool so that you can play with literally anybody. And the best people to play with are those that are just consistent machines that have the ability to play on both sides, so that
for sure
you can go into any tournament and you can just have full confidence in them to just perform super well. But I like what you said. You play some tournaments. I mean, every single tournament that you played, you guys were switching sides, and then it was like sometimes it worked better to keep Henry on the left side and keep you on the right side. And sometimes it worked better in the opposite way. And so you guys just molded around whatever was happening, whatever was being thrown at you in that moment. If your dink sucks that time, if your backhand dink sucks, go to the right side and just let your partner know, and that'll work out really well. But that's the reason behind stacking, which hopefully we covered for Spencer's sake.
Yeah, I had to get it off my chest. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will next week, I'll give you a little teaser. Next week, we'll be talking about some trick shots. Whether you like them or not, I bet we have a couple that you haven't heard of or that you haven't tried. Could win you an extra few points on the rec courts. So we will see you next week. Later.
Peace.